Declare the Economic Development Authority meeting for September 22nd in session. We have two items on the agenda. It's the review of the minutes from the September 8th, 2014 EDA meeting, and then the EDA special HRA levy for limited tax lease revenue bond series 2014A. Ed, do you want to add anything to that?
No, Mr. Mayor, that's pretty much what it is.
What we have, I have a motion to, we'll do these separately just so there's no confusion. I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 8th, 2014 EDA meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from the, sorry, forgot the date already,
September 8th.
September 8th.
September 8th EDA meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a resolution number 1469. It's, as I said earlier, the EDA special HRA levy for limited tax lease revenue bond series 2014A. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 14-69, approving a special HRA levy of $188,000 for debt service on EDA limited tax lease revenue bond series 2014A for collection in 2015.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We've approved the special levy. Is there anything else any of the council members would like to discuss? We'll adjourn this meeting and get into the council meeting. We have a motion to adjourn the Economic Development Authority meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've adjourned that meeting.
final levy that has to be equal to or lower than the amount set tonight. I'm not going to go over all the detail again with the budgeted revenues and expenditures. Everything is the same as what was presented or 2 weeks ago, except for the additions that the council had recommended. The overall general fund revenue is projected at $3,916,926. The overall expenditures are $3,903,898,000. And with this budget, the city will maintain its 30% unassigned fund balance at year end. And it's also important to note that with the budget and the long-term financial plan, we will be able to maintain our existing and service levels and hopefully improve them as the city continues to grow. Looking at the Recreation Center Fund, the total revenues are just over $1 million. They're $1,049,715. Total expenditures are $1,016,781. And the 2015 year-end fund balance is projected to be about $870,000. Again, we set aside cash at the end of each year for both cash flow purposes, and then we also have a number of capital replacement and improvements scheduled per the facilities assessment that was completed, I think, a few years ago now. So what staff is looking for tonight are 3 resolutions to be approved. The first one would be to approve the tax levy. The second one would be to approve the general fund budget. And then the third one would be the recreation center budget. And then it's also important to note that we need to announce the date and time when we will consider a final 2015 levy and budget. And that is scheduled for Monday, December 8th, 2014 at 6:30 p.m. And public input will be considered at that meeting. So with that, I'll take any questions or comments or...
Just for the record, would you reiterate, let me make one point clear. It might appear that we're throwing around millions of dollars in 5-second sound bites, but we've been at this budget process for many, many months, and the essence of the levy in the budgets, Kelly went through at the last city council meeting in great detail. So anybody who has an interest in any of the detail, we can certainly, I'd refer you to the website or direct contact with Kelly or any one of the council members. But this has gotten a lot of scrutiny. And just for the record, the major difference, there were a couple of differences between tonight and what we showed at the last council meeting. You want to repeat those?
Yes, it was adding $31,000 to the levy. That would be the general fund levy. And that was for an increase in fire department wages to get them closer to what surrounding communities are paying their volunteer firefighters. About $10,000 for parking lot maintenance and boulevard work in the city. And then the implementation of a lead public works worker. This would not be hiring a new person, but would be likely promoting from within. I'd also like to note that we still do not have our numbers for health insurance renewals, and right now we're budgeting that all employees will opt in for insurance. The way it's looking right now, health insurance might be flat for us, so there would be some savings from that. And then if employees opt out, so staff is hopeful that we can bring this number down to what it was at the budget workshop.
Fair enough. Any questions or comments?
I'll just make a comment. The Carver County auditors estimated average market value increase for homes in Victoria is somewhere in the mid-teens, like 16%. And so if we did nothing with the levy rate, that's the kind of increase that would be experienced for the city portion of your property tax bill. But this budget is built around what's the minimum amount of money we need to run the city. And so the result is that if you take this median value number, it's about 3% higher than last year. And an overall increase of 4.5%, as Kelly said, but 3.5% to the individual homeowner. So I think I give credit to the staff for being very focused on not following the rise in market value rates, but using that as an opportunity to lower the levy rate.
Anything else? There are three resolutions here we need to approve, starting with 1470.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 14-70, approving a preliminary tax levy for the City of Victoria for collection in 2015 of $3,953,800.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. We've adopted a resolution 1470. The next one?
I move that we approve resolution number 1471, adopting the proposed 2015 general fund expenditure budget of $3,903,898.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved resolution 1471. And one more.
I move we approve resolution number 14-72, a resolution adopting the preliminary 2015 Recreation Center Fund budget in the amount of $1,049,715.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
One question, is
Joe?
that number, can you repeat that number?
$1,049,715 and, excuse me, I see. And expenditures and transfers totaling $1,016,781 is listed in the attached budget summary.
I'll second that amended motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor of adopting the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've adopted resolution 1472. Next, donations.
Do you need us to state the next meeting time and date?
I think I
Did you
covered
cover
it,
that?
so
Okay.
I think we're good.
Got it.
But we'll be talking about the budget.
Oh, we're not done.
Yeah.
We're done for tonight, but we're not done.
I'm not done.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 14-73, a resolution accepting donations from David and Mary Toon in the amount of $100 designated to concerts in the park in memory of Ann Monkey's mother, as well as a donation from John and Sherilyn Schneider in the amount of $250 designated to the fire department.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Let me just say, Ann, we have you and we ask everyone to keep you and your family in our prayers. All in favor of adopting resolution number 1473?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've accepted the generous donations. We have a public hearing and a second reading. Ed?
Introduce Ben Gazzola, our interim planner, who will give the report on this item.
Get this going. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, before you tonight is the second reading and a public hearing for an ordinance to correct what really appears to be a grammatical error in your plan unit development section of code. The current ordinance contains a laundry list of factors that dictate when the City Council can provide flexibility on things like lot sizes, density, setbacks, and the like. And that's really at the heart of what a PUD is intended to do. Unfortunately, whoever wrote the ordinance back in the day used the phrase, "at least all of the provisions need to be met." And as we discussed the first time this came up, there really is no logical reason to use the phrase "at least all," or at least when you're talking about all of anything. So both staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that the City Council eliminate the word "all" in favor of the word "one." That's literally the only change that this ordinance would make, as you can see up here on the screen. Once this amendment has been completed, both staff and the Planning Commission are also recommending that the city undergo a full review of the PUD ordinance and go through a full ordinance amendment process to really clean the entire thing up, to address any other grammatical issues that might exist, and to ensure that future PUDs are meeting your expectations. Before you tonight is the ordinance for approval, and should this move forward for approval, we also have a summary publication resolution. With that, I will turn it over for questions.
Questions or comments, council, before we open the public hearing?
What did the planning commission say, if anything, on this?
The Planning Commission, I think, agreed with staff and the council during the last discussion that this isn't necessarily the ideal solution here, but it's the right solution in the short term. With the best solution being, let's open this whole thing up. Let's talk about the entire process of the plan unit development and adopt a new ordinance here in the near future.
So if we were to adopt the language and now follow these new standards, would we, in any way in the future, have developments that would meet the requirements but necessarily wouldn't maybe be liked too much by the council because it's the restrictions seem to be lax?
I wouldn't think so. Really, all this is doing is opening the door to you again to use your discretion on when to provide flexibility. And that's how the city council has always operated within the community. We've just simply identified, again, a grammatical issue in code that we felt needed to be addressed before we could continue that practice.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, with that, would somebody make a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've adopted, we are now in open session. Does anybody wish to address the council on this issue? I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have to approve ordinance 385. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 385, an ordinance to amend planned unit development regulations to clarify language granting council sole discretion to authorize flexibility on lot sizes and density.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approve the ordinance.
Honorable Mayor, there's also a summary publication resolution, which would be for the publication of this ordinance to simply save the city money, so we can publish a shorter piece of text, essentially, and explain what the ordinance is.
I move we approve resolution number 14-74? Resolution authorizing publication of ordinance number 385
Yes.
by title and summary.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've adopted the ordinance and the resolution. We move to unfinished business, Arbor Woods rezoning, preliminary plat.
Ben?
Ben?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is the Arbor Woods Plan Unit Development here before you tonight. It's brought forward to you by the Meridian Land Company, and it's for land that's located at 8121 Bavaria Road, which, as you can see on the screen, is located at County State Aid Highway 18, which is 82nd Street, and County State Aid Highway number 13, which is Bavaria Road. There are 4 different requests before you tonight. The first is a rezoning, which would change this parcel from agricultural to residential. We have a preliminary plat, a final plat, and then a conditional use permit to authorize a plan unit development. In general, this site is 19.4 acres in size, 11.12 acres of which is going to be encompassed by Outlot A. Outlot A surrounds the 9.7 acres of wetlands on this site, as well as the required buffers and ponds, so the outlot does meet all of your code requirements. Close-up look at these lots shows us that they are proposing to develop 15 single-family homes. The square footage is going to range from just over 10,000 to just over 17,000. They are proposing a monument, which was not shown the last time this was before you, but they do have the outlot for that now. And then there are 2 outlots for potential expansion of the Emerald Crest facility located to the east. They are also, as part of this, dedicating 2.41 acres of right-of-way for Arbor Woods Road and a portion of right-of-way for both of the county roads here and here. I will say everything that you see in terms of lot configuration here tonight will meet your code requirements based on the ordinance approval that you just undertook. Now, since you last saw this development, we did confirm that the proposed front yard setbacks are 25 feet here, And that was done by the engineer to preserve more trees and kind of bring things in. Interior side yard setbacks are going to be 10 feet. All other lot characteristics have not changed since this was last before the council. Moving on to infrastructure, there is the one new road proposed for this development called Arbor Woods Road, and as I stated, there will also be right-of-way dedicated to the counties. The county did require that turn lanes be designed off of 82nd Street, so those designs were provided to us and reviewed. Everybody is on board with those, but if the county needs changes, if the city engineer needs some changes, those may need to be tweaked in the future. The entry point location, we did determine to be safe, and it's in a good location because it's to the east of the existing tree line, so that'll help preserve the trees right along 82nd Street. And the developer's agreement, the draft agreement before you tonight, does include a requirement that the developer disclose the potential that this access point become a right-in, right-out at some point in the future. Looking at the sewer plans here, you can see that the sanitary sewer is going to be provided from the southwest. And turning to the water plan, you can see that that will come from the southeast. All minor plan corrections that we had talked about at the last meeting have been incorporated into these plan sets since your last review. Moving on to stormwater and grading, that all now looks good as well. Engineering has determined that all stormwater is going to be properly handled by the facilities that are proposed here, and that drainage should not be a concern for surrounding lands or wetlands. And you might recall that the last iteration of this before the council had some of the ponds on private property. All of the property lines have now been addressed to make sure that that is all on that Outlot A. Erosion control all looks good as well. All of the minor issues that had been identified by engineering have now been addressed to the satisfaction of the city engineer. And with regards to environmental impacts, the proposed number of units is not going to trigger the need for an EAW in this case, and we have not identified anything unique about this development to suggest that any further environmental study is needed. All wetlands were delineated, they were reviewed by the engineer as required, and all your MCWD provisions do appear to be met. Tree loss in this particular development is estimated at 43%, and just over 1,200 replacement caliper inches are going to be required. And based on the preservation plan before you here tonight, 528 inches are planned to be planted on site, with the remaining 673 caliper inches either having to be planted off-site or a cash in lieu payment needs to be made. As discussed last time, the developer is being asked to erect additional snow fencing around the area that's going to be impacted to make sure that the backhoes and other large equipment don't go into the no-build zone to protect against unintended tree loss. And as a final comment on environmental issues, in response to the neighborhood feedback that we received at the beginning of this process on possible osprey or eagle's nests, we have proposed a condition in the resolution here tonight that states they would need to adhere to any timing or noise restrictions that would be created by those types of nests. And then finally, on charges, fees, and other improvements, the applicant is going to be addressing park dedication with cash in lieu of land. The applicant is also going to be constructing an east-west trail from the entry point of this development over to Bavaria Road, where there's an existing north-south trail. And as part of that, we did confirm that both the east-west and north-south trail is going to be within county right-of-way based on the dedications proposed here tonight. And the last part I'll say on that, the park facility fee for this development is also going to apply. That's $2,500 per lot, which brings us a sum of $37,500 for park facilities. And then finally, as a last minute addition to the PUD plans that are before you tonight, this is based on concerns that were raised by the applicant and that we shared as staff. We are proposing to establish up front the maximum amount of hardcover that can be built on any given lot based on the table that you see up here on the screen. By code, if you look at that language, individual lots within a PUD are allowed to exceed 30% hardcover as long as the average over the entire development doesn't exceed 30%. But the problem you run into there is if you're just tracking it on a lot-by-lot basis, you can come up to the last 2 or 3 lots that don't have the ability to have as much hardcover as they really should. just because they were the last 2 lots developed. So by establishing a table like this and putting maximums on every lot, we ensure fairness throughout the entire development, and it makes it very easy for staff and the building inspector to know if they're conforming to the PUD requirements. In conclusion, the City Council is asked to make a final determination here tonight on whether the plans for Arbor Woods are ready for approval. Both staff and the Commission are recommending approval, subject to the findings and conditions that are listed in the report. You will find template motions for you on page 11 of the report, and our recommended conditions are on pages 12 through 14. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you go back to the tree preservation
Absolutely.
plan? And my question is it looks like the developer's planting trees in the outlot, the east outlot there.
Yes.
When that eventually develops, what happens to those trees? Because obviously I don't think all of those trees are going to stay there. So how do we track it, or what happens?
Excellent observation. It's an observation that was shared by your Planning Commission. And at the end of the Planning Commission meeting, they recommended condition number 26. And as part of this development process and getting the final developer's agreement in place, the developer is to work with the city attorney on a mechanism to ensure that those trees that are planted aren't going to be impacted by future development. The developer makes a good point. It doesn't behoove them to plant trees and then go in and take them out again, but there certainly is a concern on the city's side. If they do want to, technically those probably won't be significant trees at that particular point in time. And, what does the city get in return? So, valid concern and something we as staff are certainly looking to address.
So is that an agreement that we have to set up now?
Mayor and Council, what you have before you, of course, is final action items or requested action items. Included in that is a draft development agreement that is modeled on a development agreement form that you've used in the past. My office didn't literally draft that document. Staff has taken prior documents and put in a bunch of terms that fit this development. We would start with that document, but this is a negotiable agreement. And this point that you're raising, Council Member, about trees is one of the points that needs to be addressed in that agreement. So, not sure if I'm answering your question. We're not asking you to approve an agreement tonight. We are, though, asking you, staff is asking you for approvals that require that the city eventually, in the short term, have an agreement with the developer that addresses all these things. So your approval tonight would be conditioned upon having this agreement.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments or questions? I take it the applicant is in favor of, has agreed to the 26 conditions?
Rick Murray, Meridian Land Company. Mr. Mayor, council members. Yes, we did discuss this at the Planning Commission, though locations where we spotted those trees are outside of potential house sightings or locations. Hence, that's where we're trying to place them around the boundaries, give us better separation from the county roads, give us better separation from the parking lot at the Memory Care Center. I hate to plant the trees and then say that John and Mary can never change their landscape plan. But a conservation easement with some limited flexibility for the future homeowners would be totally acceptable for Meridian. And I don't know how you put that in a paragraph, but if that could be a direction, we're very amenable to that.
Thank you. I'll just remind everyone that this, when this first was presented, this concept was first presented, there were innumerable problems with getting the final approval in time to be completed during the construction season. And our hats go off to staff and the developer for working, I assume, together in a congenial way. To get these 4 items approved tonight, I think is a not Herculean effort, but a pretty significant accomplishment. So hats off to staff and, of course, to the Meridian, the developer as well.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve Resolution Number 1475, approving a rezoning preliminary plat, final plat, and CUP to authorize a plan unit development for Arbor Woods as submitted by Meridian Land Company, LLC, for the property owned by the University of Minnesota located at 8121 Bavaria Road, subject to the 26 recommended conditions as may have been amended here tonight, as has not been amended here tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the Meridian development. Next, we continue a discussion that has been part of the last, I think, at least a couple of council meetings regarding personnel policy amendments. Jessica?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've had a couple of meetings on this, and at the last discussion, there was direction provided to go back and analyze some other alternatives to the removal of the sick leave as severance for those employees hired after the adoption of the policy. And Jessica and I have been working on this, and she's got a brief PowerPoint that she wants to present, and we can entertain questions.
Before you get started, Jessica, Lonnie, do you want to, we talked earlier in the evening.
Certainly. First of all, I need to say thank you so much to you both for going back and looking at these as we requested.
Sure.
I also appreciate the additional information in the tables of research that you've given us.
Sure.
What this has led me, though, to think about is that I would like to suggest that perhaps we table all the conversation around these components with the exception of the safety dinner. I think that one's a fairly simple one. But that we table it and we actually take a step back and because we're doing the PTO research as well, I think we should review the entire compensation package as a complete package and ensure we've got the most attractive package competitively, that financially it makes sense, that we're good in the marketplace. I know in the past we had a consultant in to do some comp plan work.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's recommendations within there we need to review again and review any other pieces. Maybe bring them back in if necessary, but I mean, I'd be more than happy to lead that effort and work with staff to do that, but I feel like we're looking at everything piecemeal, and I'd like to sort of take a step back and say, okay, if we have a really good compensation package, what would it include? What would it not include? What does the tuition policy really look like? There were a number of components that the other cities had, like requiring it to be asked for the year ahead so it could be planned in budget year.
Certainly.
So it feels like I would like to actually step back and look at it as a complete package along with the PTO research, and then come back and propose a complete package in terms of compensation for our staff at that point in time.
Sure. It's fine.
Council want to offer an opinion? I'll make a motion that we, just to get the conversation started, that we table the item on the agenda tonight in favor of Lonnie's suggestion of a broader compensation study that it takes into account all or most of the items that a good market-leading compensation package ought to have, as opposed to, I think that's the motion.
Mr. Mayor, just if you're voting or if you're moving to table, you won't be able to discuss it after you have the motion. So you probably should have a general motion and you could actually table after that.
Did I make a motion?
You did.
So now we,
Well, you started to, but it hasn't been seconded yet.
oh, so before we second it,
I think maybe what you ought to do is just have a discussion if there's any questions now.
fair enough. Discussion?
I guess, Mr.
Joe?
Mayor, I felt after reading this that I still had questions on just what we were doing, and I agree with Lonnie. I think it just is a piecemeal, and we might as well just review everything and do it all at once.
I know I, for one, would have had a hard time voting on individual pieces with not knowing what other pieces might better be included, and if those pieces were included, we might vote differently on the items that are before us now, so I think Lonnie's suggestion is a good one. Now, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've tabled that item. Ed, thanks for guiding us here. guiding me. The water storage facility, final sizing.
Our city engineer, Kara, is out ill this evening, and Ann Monkey, our Public Works Director / Park and Rec Director, is going to handle the item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item has been before you several times as we have worked through the processes of initial design, preliminary design, and final design. Basically, the discussion wraps around the 500,000, 750,000, 1 million gallon storage facility that will be constructed between Ambergate and Rhapsody. The Finance Committee reviewed it last week, I believe it was last week, with Kara, and went through the points of, the costs, the benefits, and was to bring it back to the City Council for final approval as we proceed through the final design phase process of this project. And the Finance Committee recommended a 750,000 gallon facility as we go forward with that. And that is what staff is also recommending. And again, we are using the team of TKDA and Bar Engineering for this. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. Not on the engineering side, please.
Let me just add, the Finance Committee supported the completion of the 750 million, thousand gallon. It's been a long night. It'll be an expensive tank.
Just zeros.
It also almost insisted that to build the additional capacity without adopting an aggressive program to discourage use involving rate structure, education, materials, policing of the regulations. It seemed futile because we just to add capacity without attacking what could be a real problem, I think would be a false choice. We have to, though, come to the realization that this is a growing community. Lots of green lawns are being created, and the city is benefiting from those new residents, and every resident wants to have a green lawn, and we have to acknowledge that is a reality. On the other hand, an aggressive education campaign that explains the costs and maybe puts some teeth into some rules and regulations is really in order. So, yes, the recommendation was to build the storage tank, but at the same time insisting on an aggressive education campaign.
One other note that I thought is very timely, just last week we received some information from the DNR regarding additional wells, and the city is scheduled for additional wells down the road, and they reiterated the fact that cities really need to look at education, enforcement, rate structures as it relates to the per capita use of water in the community. So we just received that the last week. So,
and there's a direct link between reducing our consumption and deferring major costs. So it's to everybody's advantage to conserve.
So when will that education effort begin?
When will that education effort begin?
We're going to need to start fairly quickly. We've started kind of pulling engineering, public works people together to try to gather that, what other communities are doing, what's effective, what's not. So we've started to talk internally about that already. We have been for the past several months. So we're just going to need to try to push that agenda forward a little bit more.
And I think I'm going where Jim is. I think you need to keep us intimately involved in the progress that you're making, because this would be one of those things that'd be easy to say, yeah, we'll publish an article in the Spirit or something. It's got to be a lot more than that. It's got to be a concerted kind of all hands effort. And
well, maybe take it a step further. We're winding down the summer season now. I'd like to see a plan in place and ready to go before the spring. Is that possible?
I think we can get a pretty good start on that. Yeah.
It seems timely since those $1,000 and $1,200 water bills will be going out shortly to
Yes.
connect the dots.
First part of October. So we'll be getting phone calls.
Is it, and this probably isn't the appropriate place to get into a deep discussion, but it would be, I think, instructive and beneficial if we could earmark a portion of the water bills that are specifically related to the high users to the funding for the additional storage tank.
We talked about that. Yeah, there are a variety of ways you can either incent or penalize the usage of water, and we ought to have a chance to opine on all of them.
Well, and my thought on that was really, yes, and my thought was really that there's a direct causation here, and so let's connect the expense to the cause, and then fund it with the users that are creating the need for the expense.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Joe?
so are we envisioning then that we'll have a revamped rate structure by January 1 to implement? Is that the goal?
Yes. Ed, do you want to?
That's one of the things we're going to be looking at is rate structure, what we're charging now and what we should be charging.
In fact, we reviewed the first pass of that at the last Finance Committee meeting, October?
Middle of October.
Middle of October, we have to come back with the enterprise fund budgets, and that'll be a key component. Some suggestions.
And so what we're approving tonight is just to finish the actual design, figure out how much it costs, and then later on, we'll decide when we actually want to build if we do.
Correct.
And-
I mean, we're moving forward with the construction of the storage tank of 750,000 gallons.
Just, we're not actually approving
No.
construction.
No. It would have to go out for bid.
Yeah.
That would also come back to you guys with authorization to bid. So we'd go through that entire process.
And
So it would come back to you.
Okay.
And this would be a 2015 project.
Okay. And my initial thought here is why wouldn't we wait a year, put in the new rate structure, see if we can cut our use, and then decide after a year and see if we've done anything. I mean,
So I have to ask a silly question. When did we make a decision that we were going to change the rate structure? Because the last conversation we had about this, I actually brought forth a suggestion that we need some sort of education program, and that I was adamantly against what I would call a progressive rate structure, and that we should address the education process first before considering, the rate structure would be, if we can't modify behavior with education, then we would look at the rate structure. Now we're doing both?
No, we didn't approve a change in the rate structure. What we talked about was bringing back to council as part of the budget process suggested rate structures. So we'd have a chance to say yes, no, don't change it, keep it, but you'd be able to make those decisions in the context of the overall financial capability of the individual enterprise fund.
And to that point, there is already a progressive rate structure in place as required by Met Council for growing cities, so the cost per gallon above a certain usage rate goes up nearly
I'm
exponentially.
aware of that. I don't like that either, but
and I
So
guess
the curve could be steeper, but it's already there, and it's a requirement on us.
I think, though, for the rate structure, instead of discouraging use, we should incentivize conservation.
That's another approach.
And so, let's, cut the cost of, if somebody's below the DNR threshold during the summer months, they should get rewarded, and let's not raise rates, let's try and lower them to see if people want to pay the lower rates.
We talked about when we bring the 2015 budget for the water fund to the council, it would be predicated on a number of alternative rate structures, with at the same time to be able to assess the potential impact on the cash that the fund generates. But there's nobody's wedded, I guess, conceptually we're wedded to the structure that Tom talked about, because that was what we're being asked to do by the DNR. But who's to say we can't do that and/or something different? So, can we authorize authorize the team of TKDA Bar Engineering to proceed with the 750,000 gallon facility as part of the final design phase for the project?
I move we approve agenda statement 14-182, authorizing the team of TKDA Bar Engineering to proceed with a .75 million gallon facility as part of final design phase services for the project.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Do we have an estimate of the actual expense that this particular motion is driving?
The estimate from BAR and TKDA for a 3/4 million gallon reservoir was 1.69 million.
That's the cost. How about the study, or the design package?
Well, yeah, so let me clarify. Are we approving $1.69 million
No.
tonight, or just final design services?
Final design services.
So what is the cost of that,
That I
please?
don't have the answer to that one.
Previously, I think the council approved a $95,000 expenditure, not to exceed that.
That's what I thought it was.
So that's where we're at.
90-some thousand dollars.
And we're within budget?
Yes.
At this point?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll proceed with the plan. Final plan. The last item on the agenda involves a request by Tom Wortman for the involving TIF District Number 4. Ed, do you want to?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've been in contact with Tom Wortman, who owns the property Victoria City Center, where the Fresh Seasons Market operated a grocery store. And back a few years ago, the city approved a pay-as-you-go tax increment financing note of $400,000 over a 26-year period at a rate of 7%. The grocery store stopped operating in May, and we were told at the time that the city center was in default of the agreement on the TIF, and the city was not required to pay out the 90% of the tax increment received. So we have not paid that amount yet that was due in July. The amount is $17,439. Mr. Wortman has requested that the city pay him this amount so he can use it to pay his taxes, which are due in October 15th. And we're recommending as staff that if the city does elect to pay it, it would be sent directly to the county for payment towards taxes. Our city attorney has indicated that there is a minimal risk to the city if the council decides to pay this amount towards the taxes. Mr. Wortman has explained to the mayor and myself a tentative plan for reopening the store. He has entertained some discussions with others who may want to purchase the property, but it's more likely that he would open the store with his own people, his own staff, and that would happen about November 1st. This item was brought to the Finance Committee at its meeting of last week, and the Finance Committee had quite a bit of discussion, but then recommended that the council support the idea of paying the amount of tax increment towards the Victoria City Center taxes. And so that's what the request is this evening. Mr. Wortman indicated he would not be here.
Mr. Schuchel, what is the total amount of the, I assume, past due or currently due tax bill on the Victoria City Center property?
He's current.
He paid his first half taxes in June or July. No, excuse me, in May, because I think they were due May 15th.
So what will the amount be due? In other words, how much will there be?
It's a little more than the 17,000.
Pardon me?
It's more than the 17,000. I don't know what the exact amount is.
Okay. And so where I'm going with this is there's a tentative plan to reopen around the November 1st timeframe. Is there any condition on bringing the taxes current before restarting business? And if so, is Mr. Wortman able and committed to bringing those taxes current as part of that plan?
He indicated to us that he would allow the city, or ask the city to certify or send the amount of money that we have in tax increment directly to the county, so it would be assured to go towards the taxes. So I would assume that he would pay the difference.
Just so it's clear, this is money,
This is money that he is owed
yeah,
based on the tax
he
increment.
paid, he paid his taxes in May. The normal process would have called for us rebating 17,000 and change to him by way of the TIF district. Rather than rebate that to Mr. Wortman, his request, we would insist that the money not go into cash is fungible, but it would go directly to the county in fulfillment of his October obligation. So he would be current in taxes that come around the 1st of November if he were to open. I can tell you, both Ed and I had a hard time coming to this conclusion, but if he's serious about reopening the store and he's asking for a show of support, this seems to be like the kind of element that at least I could find myself clear to supporting his effort. Now, we've had rumors of progress before. All I can tell you, I'll reiterate what Ed said about, we've had at least 2 meetings with him where he's talking concretely about opening the store relatively soon, and he's asked for the city to show this measure of support.
And I'm in favor of whatever it is that we can do to, get out of the way of that happening. Obviously, it's private business and private property, and they need to conduct their business as best they can. But, in our role is get out of the way and let it happen, I guess. But, so to me, this is a prudent way to ensure that it does go to that end. So I assume this money is sitting in a fund somewhere waiting for disbursement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Joe?
So, Mr. Mayor, how is this process any different, or what would the normal process be? I guess, why are we even doing this? I'm trying to understand just the process and how it works.
Okay, when the city approved the tax increment financing is set up so to assist in stimulating development that would not happen otherwise. And so it went through the process of doing this TIF pay-as-you-go note to basically get the property ready for construction of the development. So you removed, I believe, 3 homes and a lumberyard and cleared the property for development. So that money went towards that. So he paid for those expenses. Now he's going to get those back, 90% of that back. The 10% is for its city administration. So it's really there to assist in getting development stimulated. And he's run into a situation where the store failed, and he's committed to reopening it. And this is an opportunity for him to make that request. And I think it shows him that if the city were to do this, that we're behind trying to get that store restored, reopened for business. And we're standing behind that. And like I said earlier, it's not a high risk to the city. It's a minimal risk, and he's going to have to deliver, or the whole thing's going to go into default.
This money essentially gets recycled then as well, doesn't it? There will be an increment created by this tax payment that will then come back to the city in the next tax cycle.
Yeah, I think that would be an accurate statement.
Mayor, let me make one comment. The staff report is right. The city attorney does not have a legal concern. I don't have a legal concern, and your bond counsel, Jenny Bolton, don't have a legal concern. The report is correct, though, that it's a minimal risk, and the risk, you've already, council member, pointed out the minimal risk, and that is that in the normal course, a TIF payment would be made by the city to the developer, to, in this case, Mr. Wortman, and what is proposed here is the payment from the city to the county to pay the property taxes. So that is not sort of a normal course payment. What would make me a little more comfortable, I think, is what you've done in the past. I understand this situation has arisen in the past, and that is to simply confirm, Mayor and interim manager, what apparently you talked to Mr. Wortman about it, and that is exactly what is proposed. The city making the payment to the county in payment of taxes. Simply confirming that in writing, that he has no objection to that, I think would be a wise sort of prophylactic step to avoid his argument later that the payment should have gone directly to him. So that's the only caveat. That's a minimal risk, but that risk could be addressed by confirming that in writing.
That's a good caution.
So again, why are we doing this? Why wouldn't we just give him the money and he pay the taxes? It just seems really odd to me.
Why would we give it, rephrase the question, why would we give him the money and let him pay?
He said
the tax?
normally
He's in
pay the
default of the
developer.
agreement.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, I don't want to speak for the mayor and for the interim manager, but I think essentially the proposal is that a landowner developer has requested the payment. Now, the city has withheld the payment because the city has had the right to do that for non-performance under the development agreement, and so the city's been withholding the payment or has withheld the payment to date. He has requested it specifically for payment of taxes. So the city, what is before you now is a request to authorize the expenditure of those monies for the payment of taxes on his property. And so rather than running any risk that that money might not go to the payment of taxes, what is proposed is that the city would actually make the payment to the county to avoid any risk at all of redirecting those funds.
So why would the city care if he pays his taxes or not? Isn't that city money, and I could care less if we pay the county?
Well, Mayor and Council, I don't want to get into a policy debate or discussion about whether you should care about that or not, but the legal concern would be that taxes are first. The obligation to pay taxes are sort of first in priority, always or almost always. And so to the extent a landowner does not make tax payments, title to the property at some point becomes in dispute, and the ability to maintain the store and the ability to ever reopen the store come into question.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee that he'll open, but it could end up being a significant prohibition in his mind if he's in default on his taxes.
Under normal circumstances, he can use the receipts from the TIF for anything that he wants.
Right.
And we're just restricting it to, it has to go to taxes.
Right.
And he's requesting to go to taxes.
Correct.
And Mayor and Council, I don't
But
want
he
to
doesn't
quibble
have
about
a
small
store
point.
open. His store is not open, though.
As of today, that's right. I don't want to quibble about small points. That's almost right, council member. He can use TIF money for any authorized expense,
Yes.
and there is a list of authorized
Thank you.
expenses, which is much broader than taxes, which
Thank
is
you.
your point, I think, so.
Thank you.
So my question then would be, would we treat any other business the same way, or have we, or are we going to have an influx of other business owners asking for different things?
Well, this is a special deal because it's TIF funded, and it's something the city decided to do at the time they issued the tax increment to actually stimulate a development. So you would have to, if there are other TIF projects that would be similar in nature, then I suppose you'd be entertaining, the possibility of be entertaining a similar type of request.
Well, an entertain a request doesn't mean our course of action would be preordained either. I think
Correct.
with legal counsel decide, well, 6 months ago, we decided we weren't going to make the payment. Now, based on the facts, that as we understand them, we're suggesting, recommending that we make the payment because the facts have changed, and it seems like, to me anyway, a prudent move.
So could we wait till the doors open on the business before we pay it? I mean,
Taxes are due in October.
We don't have to pay him at all.
Yeah.
We could keep the money.
right.
But he's asked, 2 reasons. He's asked for a show of support from the city. All right.
Which we have by all of the financing and that we gave and helped to.
He's asking for an
Bill.
additional voice of
Yeah.
support from the city, and that's that he gets the 17,000 and change in order to make his tax bill current as of the 1st of November.
I guess I just have a hard time understanding why that's our responsibility.
It's not our responsibility. It's a way of, if in fact he doesn't get the money and he doesn't pay his taxes, it could mean that the store, he'd have a hard time or an impossible time of reopening the store. That's his position.
Yeah.
We can believe it or not, but that's his position.
Yeah.
The item on the table before us today is, he's asked for a show of additional support that would go to protect his ability to open the store and remain out of default with respect to his taxes, and that's the suggestion. The money goes to pay taxes in your current. Now, what else is inhibiting you from opening the 1st of November? We've removed, according to him, we're removing one impediment.
Okay.
I guess my mindset here is that with the minimal risk as described by our attorney, I mean, there has been one comment that has been vocalized continuously to me since the store has been closed is, when are we getting another store? What can we do to get another store? And I think it's important that we work hard to help that store come back as soon as possible. And if this is minimal risk, then I think I support it.
I'll make a motion to approve payment of $17,439 to Carver County to be applied to the property taxes of Victoria City Center, or to the developer with restrictions that the monies be used for current taxes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
4-1, Mr. Pavelko voting nay. Reports of the city manager?
Nothing to report.
Is there any, may I ask a question? Is there any update, Ed, on the rec center fire?
Yes, Ann can probably get some into the detail, but we've had insurance adjusters out and the contractor, and the floor is going to have to be refinished again. Clean, the building, the gymnasium is going to have to be cleaned, walls wiped down, the curtain removed. There's quite a bit of soot and dust and odor in there.
Yep, that's basically it. We had the adjuster out last week, and then also today we met with the contractor, service master. We're looking at time and materials as they move through, and because the gym is so high, it's difficult to see what's up on top besides dirt, if there's any additional soot. But they're thinking just a basic clean of all the walls, trusses, ventilation system, the 2 rooftop units, the curtain. So they're looking at anywhere from $25,000 to $75,000 when all is said and done. So we have encouraged the company to get with their insurance company, and I think they're going to end up coming out and looking at the gym this week. So
Have we determined the exact cause?
I don't know if the final report has been completed yet, but there was a garbage can, plastic garbage can that was sitting in the center of the court that had masking tape, because they were almost to the point of taping or painting the gym floor. And there were some buffer pads also that they anticipate that had chemical on them that may have started that fire. So waiting for a final report from the fire department, which it may come back as unconclusive, but that's what I'm leaning towards right now.
Is it anticipated that the sole expense for this repair and cleanup will be borne by the contractors?
That is our intent.
And what's the additional delay, or in terms of the gym was intended to be out of use for, I think, 2 weeks, and now how long will it be?
It was actually a month, and they're right now, when they went after the fire, we tried to clean up the gym with a machine. It didn't work, so they had to re-sand the floor, and now they're back on with a second coat of paint, or finish today. I anticipate that they'll be painting lines this week, and then at least 2 more coats this week. So we're only about 4 days or so max behind schedule. It'll really depend on how fast the sealer dries up. The service master indicated to me today that it'd be about a 2-week process for them to come in and clean. So we want to get the floor people out, let the floor sit for about 2 weeks, which we can still use the gym at that point in time, just the heavy equipment that's going to be required to come in for cleaning purposes. They wanted to let the floor sit for another couple weeks, so we'll be down to probably 1 gym for 2 weeks while they move their equipment. They're kind of looking at doing it in quarters, do 1 quarter at a time, because they've got to bring in lifts, flooring to cover the floor, so it's quite a process.
Thank you.
And while you're there, any brief update on the status of the Public Works building?
The Public Works building is enclosed. They were working on the floor drains, and I believe that they have gotten those finished as of this week. The next step will be looking at the concrete flooring with the in-floor heat. They'll be starting with that. The outside excavation continues. Any little rain we get, it turns into a mud pie out there, but the power is internal, so we're chugging along. We're right on track with that one.
I know you're not directly responsible for the City Hall, but can you comment, or maybe I should ask Ed?
It appears that we're still on schedule at City Hall to be moving by the end of the year, so that we would have our first council meeting in January there.
Any other comments, council members?
Question, Ed, I'm thinking back sometime in July, there was a discussion about resurfacing County Road 11, and I seem to recall something about it would take most of the month of August. Is this way over schedule, or do I recall something differently?
You know the answer to that one?
Councilmember Crowley, I'm not positive on that. I haven't heard an update from them. I did wonder myself where they had gone to and when they were going to get finished, so it could have been weather, it could have been another project. I'm not positive on that one.
It appeared it sat there for 2 weeks in August.
Yep. And I don't know if it was weather related or not. I don't think so, but I'm not positive on that one.
That would be a first, Jim, if it's out there.
Is there a final completion date? I know it's very, very close.
But most of it, I'm guessing in September.
Thank
Joe?
you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one question on the 2015 Highway 5 project. Where is that along in the process, and do we have meetings coming up so that we can...
MnDOT's been holding some engineering-type staff-related level meetings, and mostly related to utilities and how that's going to be reconstructed. But there will be public meetings, open houses later that MnDOT will coordinate.
Before the end of the year?
I would anticipate that, yes.
I can comment on that. I've actually had conversation with Kara on this particular issue because I've been trying to reach MnDOT on it, and she had last been in touch with them, but again, it's been a while since they've answered her back, and they were trying to see if they could get into doing a potential neighborhood meeting specifically for Lake Bridge and Auburn Lake, which is across from Lake Bridge, before the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other? The Arboretum Trail is now open. We have an event planned for what date? October 13th. And there'll be more on that later. Finally, if no one else has any, council have any questions, I want to thank the VBA and in particular Randy Miller for the spectacular classic car season that just concluded this past Wednesday with the double-decker bus from Southwest Transit. Randy, how many cars?
They're always approximate numbers, 280 cars with approximately 1,500 guests.
280 cars. I mean,
That's great.
It's an amazing thing to see Little Victoria on a Wednesday night with the sun just setting at 70 degrees and cars all over the place and people in all of the restaurants walking around downtown. It just reconfirms to me then what a special place this city is, and And partially the additional $10,000 in the budget that Ann requested to go to continue to beautify the downtown area with removing dead trees and sprucing up the thing, making it really an attractive, continuing to be an attractive place for people to visit. 200, almost 300 cars. How many people?
Approximately 1,500.
1,500. We're going to hate to see the snow come, Randy. Anybody else? Joe, you have? Or Bob, rather?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I make a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're closed.
We should have a